and I guess we should get right into it. Uh, my series here is a series, I guess one of the standard music or token music series of the season, and usually these come up every season or so. Obviously, you have stuff like Your Lie in April, that was a little bit more of a famous one, but you have other series that, um, what is it? The What was the Japanese instrument one that you covered here? The
Mashiro
not
no Oto.
Yes, Mashiro no Oto, stuff like that. That was, I think, a little bit on the decent side, right?
Yeah,
And
I
then
liked it.
yeah, and then you have some other stuff, and it kind of all middles in. I think it's a little bit better when, uh, how do I say this? It's a little bit more tuned to the Japanese experience, but you have stuff like Out Orchestra here. So Out Orchestra, let me just start off with a basic covering of the staff and how it's set up. It is done by Nippon Animation Studios. If you guys don't know, this is a very old company. They've been working on stuff since the freaking 70s. The birth of what we know now as sort of modern Japanese animation, right? They For instance, they worked on the Dog of Flanders anime slash movie, not modern remakes, the original Dog of Flanders anime slash movie. So they've been in this business for quite a while. Recently, they've been doing a lot more of in between animation help, just being subcontracted to a lot of different other studios. But they did recently had stuff like Let's Make a Mug 2, as well as Level Play in the recent years, 2021, 2020, 2022, so on. So they've done a couple of smaller works that we know in the general anime season, but mostly it's been in between. So overall, the staff is generally, it kind of looks like let me go over the staff individually first, and then I'll kind of give my thoughts on it. The chief producer, Takata Jun, is a sort of a newer producer. He did stuff with Eizouken and To Your Eternity, which is not light series to handle for sure. So pretty decent experience as a starter. The director, Kishi Seiji, is a veteran in the industry. He's done stuff he's directed Angel Beats, Assassination Classroom, Arpeggio of Blue Steel, Carnival Phantasm, Seto no Hana Yume, a lot of big hitters that you
Wow,
guys
I've
might not
heard of
know.
those shows.
Really? Dude? Tell me
That's
more. But
What's
crazy.
your favorite?
yeah,
Mine's
Arpeggio of Blue Steel. I think out of all of those,
Obviously.
the best one is Arpeggio of
Obviously,
Blue
yeah.
Steel. Yeah, but you know, he also did some that I don't necessarily consider to be as good anime wise. He did Yuki Yuno wa Yushiraru. I know there's a big fan base out there. I personally was not a big fan of that series overall. Tsuki ga Kirei. He also did the Danganronpa anime. I think was also pretty popular. I think, right?
I
The,
You're asking
the
me, brother. I don't
Yeah,
fucking know.
the rest of the staff are, I think, so it kind of looks like from the general staff list that Kishi Seiji sort of got the old Goon Squad who's been working with him across a bunch of series. For instance, again, Persona related stuff, Assassination Classroom, Danganronpa, Arpeggio, Carnival Phantasm, Tsuki ga Kirei, uh, Tentai Senshi Sunred, stuff like that. And he just put them all of his connections, right, onto this. So I was expecting more or less a pretty well-oiled machine coming in. Again, people like Kakiharu Yuko, who worked on Aikatsu, Akotope, Cells at Work, Shifu. She also worked with uh, Kishi on again Tsukiya Kirei, but she also had some stuff like Digimon Try where it didn't pan out as much. But I won't blame her too much for that. Kosumura Akira is the only sort of new person uh, in this group that is not part of the Kishi Seiji Inside group. He only did one small movie and ONA before this, and this is his first general anime work. Other than that, again, Morita Kazuaki being the animation director, come character design. Ida Satoki, sound director. Again, these are all long time veterans and connected with Kisi Seiji on previous works. Opening theme, ending theme are pretty nondescript, I want to say. The opening was Cantabile by Novel Braid. It kind of devolves into standard male J-pop stuff. There's not much orchestra, string kind of stuff in it, although obviously the name and everything reeks of classical music, whatever, blah blah. Same for the ending theme, Yusari no Canon by Soshina. It starts off with this sort of electronic remix of Puckball Cannon, and then it goes into standard J-pop with a little bit of synth strings thrown in here and there. Again, not too impressive either way. Audio visuals, I would say overall are fine, pretty decent to perfectly fine when they're 2D and when they're just talking and stuff. And there's not too much animation in those. It's mostly just dialogue between the audience, between the characters, and a little bit of mouth movement, right? So that is handled pretty well. But other than the initial musical performance animation, because there's this animation of how of the protagonist playing the violin at the beginning, right? It's always, stuff like Your Lie in April, stuff like Mashino no Oto, stuff like this. All these music series always have that intro scene in the first episode, right? When the protagonist is reminiscing of days gone by,
Of
right?
course.
Of their youth, where they were genius, they were at the concert, they were playing so well, and then now they're here in this dark room, and they're just sad little boy, stuff like that. And so in that intro scene where the main protagonist was reminiscing about his violin concerto, that animation was pretty well blended. I want to say the animation was still laggy, but overall the visuals look pretty quite well blended in terms of between the 2D background and the 3D obvious 3D CG animation of the performance. So I thought to myself, okay, well clearly the director kind of learned his lesson since Tsuki ga Kirei, which when I was reviewing it, I was mentioning that there was very poor blending going on between the 2D background and the 3D, or the 2D front, actually, the front animation, right, of the characters, and the 3D background, right? So when the 2D characters will walk back into the school along with all the other schoolmates, right? You could see the sort of sea of 3D models
Yeah.
and the 2D animation in between, and it was very uncanny valley, and it was very awkward. So I thought to myself, okay, well, this Kishi Seiji's team learned from last time, and Tsukiga Kirei crawled so that this anime could walk, right? And so I was pretty pleased initially, but then immediately in episodes 3 onwards, the all the other animations involving the music, the orchestra, so on, were very standard 3D, clearly just blocky animations, clear 3D looking models. And it kind of just looks like either episode one was just very flatly used to bait out the viewers into watching the rest of the anime, which is kind of standard practice, but more so, right?
Yeah.
Or it was just them completely just running out of the standard 3D budget after episode one. Well, very unfortunate. I was hoping a little bit more from 3D blending again into better animations. I wasn't expecting them to do full 2D animations like it was some Kyoani stuff or some Nodame Cantabile stuff, right? That's not what I was expecting, but I was expecting a little bit of better improvement on the 3D, but it wasn't to be. So a little bit unfortunate. Quickly going over the voice acting cast, the main cast is veteran Takuma Ai for the main heroine, as well as Furukawa Makoto doing the MC, the main protagonist. And they are sort of the veterans that are leading some of the less experienced other cast members that round out the main cast. The supporting cast for the various teachers and the other classmate A, stuff like that, is the standard medley of the AB listers. They have Anzai Chika, Saito Chiwa. Saito Chiwa is actually doing a lot of roles this season for some reason. Ono Daisuke, Kanamoto Hisako, Fukushima Jun, Enoki Jr., and so on. A lot of those listers just rounding out the supporting cast. So pretty solid list all around, I think, for overall. So yeah, that is the general roundup of the setup for the anime. And as for the anime plot itself, uh, it's a general setup of the standard kid genius who played violin a lot and he was really good. But then one day he suddenly started stopped playing. Why? Because of trauma involving his family and divorce and his father leaving him and so on and stuff like that. So he has this trauma. He doesn't want to play the violin because of the trauma. And then he goes to school. He meets other kids, including the uh, female lead that who also has her own sort of background with problems and stuff like that. And he goes, "Oh, well, maybe I should grow past it. Maybe I should pick up the violin too." And so then he graduates with her to, I think, go on to high school, right? High school where they're all in this and join this orchestra club with a bunch of other competitors and really good players and play classical music and be part of an orchestra club. And so that's the general thing. And after that, it becomes pretty episodic, plus or minus some character development and drama and competition and all that bullshit, right? So I think to start off, there are rom com elements in it, like the main heroine is being is meshed with the main protagonist and the blue hair guy, Aono, right? And Akina, I think, is the red hair girl, right? They kind of butt heads together, and they're like, "Oh, why are you?" The guy says to the girl, "Oh, why are you being so nosy?" And then the girl is trying to pull him out of his sort of social hole, right? Because he's very withdrawn due to his trauma, and getting to try to play the violin again and all that crap. And that sort of development happens, and then the blue hair girl, the blue green hair girl, kind of has a crush on the main protagonist and all that crap, all this kind of character development. The general rom com youth development here is pretty standard in the anime context, but I don't think that sort of tone is pieced in together very smoothly with the rest of this general classical instrument performance, youth orchestra, being in school and doing all these things, etc. Theme and timbre that the series wants to push because in that sense the theme, the director and the scriptwriter, much like in Tsukiyakire, wants to push this more again. Oh, I have this trauma. I have this. Oh, I'm going to play this instrument, but it kind of reminds me of this. But then we have competition and drama and all that crap. And that is taking a more serious tone. But then the parts where the rom-com kind of kicks in is just not very well done because then it just suddenly goes into, oh, why do you? It's like, oh, you dare touch my hand, or did you look at my panties, or whatever stuff, and that's just not dialed in at the same sort of level, at the same sort of register as the rest of the series, and it's just too abrupt of these changes. Even if it's supposed to be set for contrast, that rom com part feels very, very, very standard anime. Like it's supposed to be a clarion call to, hey, standard anime watchers who are in the know and like this sort of stuff. Hey, here it is. You like this, right? And it kind of seems to be a call to those people. And it says, okay, well, back to the more quote unquote realistic or orchestra use stuff. And it's not a very good transition. And yeah, and even when it's set for contrast, doesn't do a very good job. So I didn't like that, to be honest. Uh, there's also not a lot of classical music related stuff, other than tiny bits of trivia here and there. It's the series focuses a lot on the youth and recovering from trauma plot line in the initial episodes, and it transitions into the whole drama and competition, blah blah. Um, a, a very disappointing example of this was that the initial setup for the main heroine of how she kind of wanted to start playing the violin and stuff like that, uh, that was set up to develop more broadly, more deeply, not broadly, deeply in episodes 1 and 12, didn't really go places after they transitioned into the high school and started the orchestra club, which I thought wasn't a very good start for the series. I I think they should have fully fleshed out the heroine or made the heroine a lot more continually central to the series instead of diving back into the competition, the classical music, performance world, or whatever the crap drama that they were trying to sell, because that was the more important bit, I think, to develop of the characters and small cast that they had. But the transition was not great. Um, Overall, I also think that there was just too much random fluff. There were these, usual quotes that you find in Japanese music anime series that goes, the main protagonist will listen to an orchestra and go, each grain of sound meshes together. And I'm just sitting there like, nobody thinks this when they're listening to an orchestra or look, I was
Bro is
in a
saying this while
region.
playing fucking hot cross buns, dude.
Yeah, I know. I was in a region, one of the most musically enriched for like youth musically enriched places in the United States, and where there was a lot of money, a lot of musical competition. And I've been to places like Wolf Trap, places like Kennedy Center, right, which is a national sort of musical center, right, in the United States. And I wasn't thinking, oh, each grain of sound meshes together beautifully, like the Harvey. I was just listening to the music, bro. Like, chill out. It's
But
just
did
I
it
hate it.
move your soul? Did it move you?
Yeah,
Did it
exactly.
move your very being? Did it change
Yeah,
did it change the trajectory of your entire life? If
I should have
not,
had the
it
part
was a
where
terrible performance.
yeah, I should. You know how the hair usually flutters during that part where
Yeah.
they have the
Yeah.
realization, the ratatouille
If you
part.
didn't get like face blasted with magical wind when you were
Yeah,
listening
exactly.
to it,
Yeah,
it was pretty bad, I think.
yeah, exactly. So that and also, um, I there's a bits and pieces of classical music trivia and orchestra trivia. So they talk about, again, second violin stuff, first violin, principal violinist or cellist, the chairs and stuff like that. But they don't really go through the audition process properly, which is sort of the bigger competition, quote unquote, parts of something like a youth orchestra. And there's not a lot of youth instrument performance parts of it, to be honest. There are scenes of people playing the instrument, but there's not a lot of obvious, mundane, realistic details in it that will make somebody who's been or is in a youth orchestra go, hey, that I recognize that. I've been through that sort of stuff before. There's not that much of it. There's too much of this very abstract talk about being at people talking to each other about being at competitions, which sometimes people kind of make jokes about here and there. Like, if I've faced somebody at a competition a couple of times or more, I'll be like, are you working on that piece again, man? Are you gonna show off that piece? You've been working on that for like 2 years now. We'll make small jokes, or we'll diss some other instrument or whatever it is. But we're not gonna go like, we knew each other 6 years ago at this competition. That's not what we taught. That's not what we do. Okay, like, that's not a thing. Um,
I mean, it's
and
not
that
like what anybody
Sounds
does.
like
Like no,
someone's not
yeah,
really taking it that
like
seriously.
yeah,
yeah, like
yeah, exactly.
people don't really like behave or communicate like
Yeah, they
that. You know
just
what I mean?
joke around, like,
Yeah.
even if they are competitors. And this clearly smacks of a, I guess, original author as well as script writers and directors who did not do enough research on the subject, which is disappointing because this is not the first rodeo that this sort of themed anime has been on, right? Musical, orchestra, youth, whatever, these sorts of anime have been out since the beginning of freaking civilization. And to get it wrong in the year 2023 is honestly still a little bit disappointing. And so there's just too much competitions and drama and just not enough of the mundane. And a lot of times the mundane things are what people really enjoy watching when people are watching these theme stuff. That's why uh, you know, four girls in a club doing random things get so much traction, right? Because those sorts of series, yeah, they have the Moe Blob girls and whatever, but at the end of the day, they oftentimes talk about a lot of the mundane, realistic things these days than a lot of these sorts of drama competition series do, right? Things like Do It Yourself, or Let's Make a Mug, or Yamano Susume oftentimes talk about these mundane things a lot better than, oh, I gotta face off these competition. I gotta look them in the eye and think about the grains of sound meshing together. Like, come on, guys. And these sorts of mundane things is what makes the anime much more realistic to the viewers. Again, talking about maybe having to practice at 3 a.m. in the morning in a freaking closed and hot and sweaty room somewhere in a freaking hall somewhere, right? Uh, and on top of that, not only are they focusing on competition, there's the competition aspects that they're focusing on are way too or not. I mean, it is dramatic, but it's too abstract. They're just talking about all these sorts of weird mental aspects of competition, such as, oh, I stared him in the eye. Oh, I couldn't hold my violin properly because all of the pressure of the other guy across from me and whatever, blah, blah. And it's just, again, it's not really akin to what people actually think about during these moments or during these sorts of environments. And it would have been really nice if they could have focused on the specific parts of the youth orchestra or the instrument performance specific parts. Because elsewise, if you're not going to make that part realistic and that part appealing, why would I watch this series about competition and drama when I can watch the 50 other sports series about competition and drama to begin with, right? There are plenty of those that are decent out there, like Blue Lock even or some whatever. Why would I watch out an orchestra? What reason do I have? And it's just very frustrating, I think. Not, and, for instance, a big example also of something the director and the scriptwriter and the author taking pains to sort of shoehorn in this drama and competition in lieu of creating a much more realistic and appealing anime uh, that goes towards portraying youth orchestra is this one scene where the main protagonist meets the white haired dude in this poster art, right? Which is sort of not the deuteragonist, but one of these sort of sidekicks, right? His sidekicks, and or I guess the rival in a sense, whatever rival sidekick, some member of the main cast group. So they're put together in as an example of the newcomers, right? The freshmen, and they're given 4 seasons of spring and they're told, hey, sight read this, try playing it. And so they start playing it and they're both supposed to be super good. And the white haired guy suddenly starts smirking and starts changing up the tempo or whatever it is. And the protagonist is like,
Yeah, but
he's
like that's
changing
not
up
what
the
he was
tempo.
asked to do.
Yeah, exactly. That is literally not what you're supposed to
You
do
can't do
in an
that. You can't just
orchestra,
start
especially in an
freestyling.
audition. Yeah, exactly. Especially in an orchestra. It's what I mean, even as a soloist, if you're playing with an orchestra, right? You have to play, you have to let the orchestra director as well as obviously the rest of the orchestra has to be in concert with the soloist and when he's going to slow down and when he's going to go fast and stuff like that. And if he doesn't
I don't
plan
know,
that
man.
out literally
I think the
yeah,
soloist could just like
do whatever he
look at the
wants,
conductor
yeah.
and like just give him a little wink whenever he's done.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. And if he's just doing random stuff and uh, on the night of the concert and the conductor is just out there doing something completely else, it's just going to be a mess. And that's the soloist, let alone a member of the orchestra who has to be in lockstep with the conductor and as well as the rest of the orchestra and not do random tempo stuff. In fact, that's also a very important part of auditions where the conductor or whoever is running the audition will specifically make sure. I mean, eh, make sure that the guy isn't doing it at some random tempo or trying to mix it up and be at weird tempos or interpret the sight reading sheet music or the excerpts that they were supposed to be practicing in a very weird way that is not usually done in performances. So this whole idea of wow, he's switching the tempo up suddenly, so I can't play with him. That is literally not what you're supposed to do in an orchestra. Even if, in fact, even if it kind of deviates slightly from the sheet music, it's better to be in lockstep with the rest of the orchestra and the conductor than it is to fuck with the tempo and be, disjoint from somebody else in the orchestra, especially the person next to you. In fact, what will often happen is that if, for instance, let's say it's usually two columns of people in each sort of section, the strings, for instance, right? So you'll have a first cello and a second cello, and then third cello and a fourth cello, kind of in a row. Or you have the first cello and the second cello, or the principal cellist and the second cellist, right? Assistant principal. So you'll have those two people in the first row, and then you'll have the third cello, fourth cello in the second row, fifth cello, sixth cello in the second row, so on and so forth, right? The higher the up you are, obviously, usually the better you are, right? But that aside, if the person on the inside is flipping sheet music or kind of messing up a little bit with some intonation or fingering or messing up a certain part, usually this doesn't really happen in better orchestras, but sometimes in youth orchestras it does happen. It is beholden upon the job of the outside cellos, the cello or the violins, cellos, or the outside strings, the strings that are closer to the audience, to cover for that person and play and make it kind of look like everybody's playing in lockstep anyway. That is literally what you're supposed to be doing. Everybody's supposed to be playing in harmony. And this whole idea of, oh, drama, competition, he's fucking me up with the tempos.
Yeah, but
He's
Spire,
doing initial D
counterpoint,
on me. Yeah.
counterpoint, that scene at the end of Whiplash was really cool.
Yeah, that is true. I apologize. But this idea of, oh, cut there, he's switching up tempos on me to screw me. Stuff like that is ridiculous. People do not do this, okay? People don't. There are parts where obviously the youth orchestra is competitive. Most notably during auditions where they're shuffling around chairs, right? Because obviously you want to get a higher chair to look good, right? Um, Being principal cellist or principal violinist is best, or concertmaster, right? Is best. Being second chair or third chair or fourth chair or whatever afterwards is still good, if you can get highest chair as possible. Some people are lazy and want to try to choose an even chair, like an inside chair, right? So they if they fuck up they don't get screwed, right? uh from what the audience is looking at, or they want to get a lower chair because they're lazy or whatever. There are some people like that, but mostly you want to get a higher chair, right? And there's a bit of drama here and there, sometimes sparks during auditions, but beyond that, you're not playing to screw the other person. That is not how you play in an orchestra.
I mean, you could
And
apply this. You could apply this to like any other show and realize how fucking
yeah,
stupid that is. It's like imagine if like in an Idol series
yeah.
they were just doing practice and then all of a
And then
sudden one
like
of them
dance
started
across,
just
yeah,
like
just like bump
fucking
into it, yeah.
popping and locking or some shit, and you'd be like,
Yeah.
what the fuck are you doing? Like that's
Yeah,
not.
exactly. Or like elbowing the other person during an actual routine. It's like,
Yeah, it's like
why would you
sick.
do this?
You're supposed to be a group. I don't know if you know this.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just ridiculous. And it's just very frustrating that, again, there's a reason why four girls in a group doing cute things gains traction, even though they're just talking about the most mundane of trivia. It's because that sort of thing is valued by a lot of people. And to kind of do this all in bet on the drama and the competition and the trauma of the background and blah blah. It's just very disappointing. And I wish they wouldn't have thrown away this opportunity to have a better anime series, a more uncommon, unorthodox anime series. Especially since, if I remember correctly, I was skimming through the ANS site, and there's an actual orchestra, a school orchestra called Senzoku Gakuen Philharmonic Orchestra, which is based in Kanagawa somewhere, I believe, that actually performed for this anime. So whenever the orchestra is performing, so on, all of that is being performed by this actual school orchestra, and the different um, characters that perform are actually being performed by individual real life performers. So I think this was a really good opportunity to just have a plain, hey, school orchestra, this is what youth people go through. Sometimes they go through a lot of struggles. Sometimes they play in places that aren't very nice, but then they enjoy it. Sometimes they diss each other's instruments or whatever. They have all these maintained things. They practice in hot, sweaty rooms for like hours, and it's just all silly and whatever. And I think that would have been nice. And you could have added the slight rom com and like backgrounds on top of that, whatever. But I don't think it needed to be this dramatic. Oh, I gotta beat this other. I gotta play Vivaldi so much better than this other guy. They won't even believe how much I Vivaldi it up. I don't need that. I don't need that in this anime. Sorry, I have plenty of that in the billion other soccer animes. and Prince of Tennis and whatever. Okay, it's fine. Don't need that in my life. So overall, I do think it was. I was sort of expecting a slight disappointment when I came into this series, but it was more of a disappointment than I had realized, and that's very unfortunate because I wanted to give this series a good chance, especially knowing the Kishi team that came in for this. But it looks like they have not really learned the best of lessons from what they did and stuff like Tsukiga Kide. And again, it is unfortunate that they kind of messed up an idea that could have gone better. But yeah, overall, pretty disappointing. I would not recommend this to somebody. Mostly a waste of time, I think. There are plenty of other better series with similar structures out there. You could, again, watch a sports series if you want. Go watch Your Lie in April if you need to. Go watch Mashiro no Oto if you need to. Don't watch this series. So yeah,
So you would probably say playing music faster doesn't make you better?
it makes you more soulful, or it either makes you super soulful or super mechanical. It has to be one of the two.
Yeah,
And if
it's
you're
either
mechanical,
it's
you're a
either
villain.
it's either pure soul or no soul.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
it's
You
like
have
video
to.
games, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
You're
exactly.
either you have soul or you're soulless.
Yeah. It's like how sometimes esports players lures play out where you know how sometimes top players are construed as, oh, they're just a soulless machine. They just play the optimal thing every time or whatever it is. Versus, oh, this guy plays with so much aggressive soul and whatever stuff like that. It's
Yeah,
kind of
Dude,
like that.
everyone
Yeah.
knows the more RPM
plays
you
from the
have,
heart.
the better player you are. Okay,
That is true.
so
But yeah,
or
unfortunate.
APM.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
higher
it's a little bit
APM,
of
better player every single time. So
I'd have that 600 APM. But yeah, it is very unfortunate. I would give this a mouse score of probably 4-ish. Yeah, 4-ish. Maybe 4.5. I wouldn't give it any higher than that. I don't think it was above average. It was quite, or I don't think it was even average. I would think it was definitely below average, but I don't want to give it a score that tends towards bad because it wasn't terrible. It was just disappointing. like a like a weary father to his son.
Yeah,
Just disappointing.
I'm not mad, just disappointed.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that was my review of Aon Orchestra, again done by Nippon Animation Studios. Again, disappointing work from the Kishi team as well as the original creator or whatever, but we can't all be winners, right? Anyways,
Not with that attitude's fire.
yeah, not with that. I apologize for being such a Debbie Downer.
See, I didn't know orchestra was so competitive if there are no winners. If we can't all be
Yeah,
winners.
everybody just loses in orchestra.
Well, I don't, Spire, you don't play for fun. You're not soul playing. What is it? Brink, it's soul skating. You're not a soul player or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's very disappointing sometimes these series. I hope a music series comes out soon that focuses a little bit more on that mundane
How
stuff.
how good is the music again? You said it was by this one orchestra place. Is it pretty good?
Seems like a pretty standard set. I don't think usually for these series, I mean, they hire good people who can play it properly, but I
But
don't
you
think
said it's
usually these
standard, so you're
anime.
saying these. So you're saying these orchestra players are just average, even though they came from a prestigious school.
Yeah, that's true. It doesn't necessarily fit, but I think the youth philharmonic played like a youth philharmonic from what I could hear. The violinists played pretty standard well, something that you might hear in a standard YouTube video of maybe a
So they're
state level
just.
or national level competition, maybe national level ish, regional level ish
So,
competition, right?
but
Pretty.
how can they be standard if they're national slash regional level? Standard. You
Yeah.
said standard. I'd be thinking like early high school stuff, not.
Okay, so let me clear up my
Maybe
stance.
your music taste is more eclectic than mine, I guess.
When I'm thinking real good, I'm thinking legit just people who would place at national
So
competitions.
they don't
That's sort
place
of
at nationals because you said they're standard.
I don't know. They seem pretty I mean the youth orchestra part when they're just playing as an orchestra, seems pretty standard. I don't see anything, super noticeable about them. Again, the performers are the performers. They play the standard pieces. I'm sure they can play pretty well, but it is what it is, right? Um, but yeah, especially since we're not talking about a lot of times we're not talking about individual performances. Like you'll hear some clips here, audio clips here and there in the series of somebody playing, a Paganini Caprice or whatever, and then the orchestra will play a clip of Bolero or whatever. But it's all pretty standard. It's nothing I would perk up my ears at and go, "Wow, whoever's performing this is freaking great." That's not. I'm not. It's pretty standard. But yeah. Anyways, that was my review